They were just kids, 27 teenagers, loud, laughing, and full of dreams. The class of 1999 had survived 4 years of high school, and now it was time for one final trip before the real world swallowed them whole. But they never came back. No calls, no witnesses, no goodbyes. Only a deafening silence that haunted the small town of Dunsmuir, California, for over 2 decades. For 22 years, the disappearance of the class of '99 was dismissed as an urban legend, a grim bedtime story to keep teens from wandering too far. But that changed on June 3rd, 2021. It was an overcast Thursday morning when Peter Langley, a 44-year-old experienced hiker, strayed from his usual path deep in Oregon's Rogue River, Siskiyou National Forest. The fog was thicker than usual, curling around the trees like ghostly fingers. Peter was looking for a shortcut. What he found instead was a nightmare. Tucked between the trees, almost consumed by time itself, sat a rusting yellow school bus, half sunken into the damp earth, its windows shattered, its doors jammed shut. Ivy and moss had almost swallowed it whole, as if the forest had been trying to hide it. Inside, the seats were torn, moldy. Scattered yearbooks lay slumped on the floor, the pages wrinkled and bloated from years of moisture. And then there was the smell. Rot, metal, and something far worse. Peter backed away, but then he saw it, scratched into the emergency exit in blood-red letters. "We shouldn't have come here." Authorities arrived within hours. The markings on the bus confirmed it. It was the same one the students had taken for their graduation trip in 1999. How it had ended up nearly 200 miles off course, buried in an unmapped section of the forest, was anyone's guess. What shocked investigators even more was what they found hidden beneath the floorboards. Bones, dozens of them. But that wasn't the most chilling part. Near the driver's seat, they found a camera, old, water damaged, but the tape inside, still intact. When it was finally restored, the footage was short, grainy, and horrifying. The video starts with laughter, students singing, playfully throwing snacks, the typical chaos of a class trip. The timestamp read June 12, 1999, but within a few minutes the footage shifts. The bus shakes violently, screams, the camera tips. The driver yells something about a man in the road, and then static. When the feed returns, the bus is empty. The lights are off. The laughter is gone. One girl, Megan Holloway, appears on camera whispering, "Something's out there. It took Mrs. Bell, and it's not human." The last image is Megan's tear-streaked face pressed against the lens, before the camera falls sideways and the screen cuts to black. The town of Dunsmuir was torn apart when news broke. Families who had long accepted their children were dead, some even accused of being involved, now had a twisted form of closure, but no one could explain what had really happened. Some blamed cults, others spoke of skinwalkers or something older, something that had lived in those woods long before maps existed. All we know is, of the 27 students, only partial remains of 11 were recovered. The rest, still missing, and if the tape hadn't been found, maybe no one would have believed it ever happened at all. Maybe the class of '99 would have just stayed a ghost story forever. But now the world knows. They were real, and something took them. It was July 1996. The sleepy town of Oak Ridge, Washington, had just welcomed home a group of 8th grade students who'd returned from a 4-day school camping trip in the Cascade Mountains. Everyone came back, except one boy. Daniel Kessler, age 13, had vanished during the second night of the trip. According to his classmates, he walked into the woods alone, to look at stars and never returned. Search parties spent 3 weeks combing the area. Nothing. No clothes. No scent trails. No body. Then, on August 14th, 23 days later, Daniel returned, barefoot, covered in dirt, scratches down his arms, but alive. He walked into town just before dawn, silent, expressionless, and his parents knew immediately. This wasn't the same boy they'd lost. At first, everyone thought it was trauma. Daniel didn't speak for the first 2 weeks. He just stared, sometimes at walls, sometimes at nothing. but his mannerisms were wrong. He didn't recognize his own dog. He flinched when shown his baby pictures. He used words he never spoke before. And sometimes at night, his parents would find him standing outside, staring at the sky, whispering things in a language no one could identify. One night, his younger sister woke up screaming. She said Daniel was sitting in her room, watching her sleep with his head tilted at an unnatural angle. He didn't blink, and when asked what he was doing there, all he said was, "She's not ready, not yet." Eventually, Daniel was sent to a child psychologist. The sessions were recorded, and something deeply disturbing emerged. On one tape, when asked where he had been, Daniel paused and said, "I went underneath." When the doctor asked, "Under what?" Daniel looked directly into the camera and whispered, "Under them. They live beneath the cold skin of the earth. They made me watch." That tape was sealed and handed to authorities. A week later, the psychologist moved out of town without notice. Then one night in October, Daniel's mother awoke to a strange sound, like hundreds of whispers vibrating through the walls. She followed the sound to the backyard. Daniel was standing barefoot in the grass. Both his eyes were completely black. No whites, no iris, just pitch voids. Behind him, in the shadows of the trees, something was watching. Not one thing, many. Figures, tall, wrong-shaped, almost blending with the darkness. His mother screamed. Lights flickered across the house, and when she turned back, Daniel was gone. All that remained were 2 footprints burned into the grass. To this day, Daniel Kessler has never been found again. But every year on the night of his return, the lights in his old bedroom flicker, even though no one lives in the house anymore. And if you ask the locals, they'll tell you the same thing. That thing that came back wasn't Daniel. It just wore his face. In March 2003, the Wexler family, Eric, Naomi, and their 7-year-old son Mason, left the chaos of Los Angeles behind and moved to a quiet home on the edge of Sedgwick County, Kansas. The house was old, isolated, and surrounded by overgrown wheat fields, but it was cheap, too cheap, a foreclosure property no one else wanted. Naomi loved the quiet, Mason had space to run, and Eric, he just wanted peace after losing his job. For the first week, everything was perfect, until the scratching started. At first, it came only at night. Faint scratching inside the walls near Mason's room. They called pest control. Nothing was found. Then Mason began talking to someone in the corners of his room. When Naomi asked who, he simply said, "The boy in the wall." Eric dismissed it as imagination. Naomi wasn't so sure. Things escalated. Clocks stopped at exactly 3:09 a.m. every night. Picture frames would fall on their own. And once Naomi found every cabinet in the kitchen open. Not just open, but bent outward like something had pushed from inside. One stormy night, their dog began barking uncontrollably at the basement door, growling, whimpering, refusing to go near it. Eric decided to check it out. What he found was horrifying. Carved into the stone wall behind the water heater was a series of names, dozens of them, with dates. Some scratched deep, some newer, as if someone had been down there recently. At the bottom of the list was one name freshly etched, Mason Wexler, March 17th, 2003. 3 days away. Eric backed away, heart pounding, and then he heard it, breathing, right behind him. But when he turned, no one was there. Naomi insisted they leave, but Eric refused. "We can't afford to move again." That night at 3:09 a.m., the entire house shook. Mason screamed. They ran to his room, but it was empty. The window was still locked. No sign of a break-in. Only one thing remained, a trail of small, dirty footprints leading to the basement. Eric rushed down, but the footprints ended at the wall, a wall that was now bleeding. The Wexlers were never seen again. When police finally entered the house 2 weeks later, it was empty. No signs of struggle, no bodies. But in the basement, a new name had been carved, Eric Wexler, March 18th, 2003. And beneath it, in shaky letters, as if written by a trembling hand, "This house doesn't forget, and it doesn't let go."